everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. Today, painting a model from Nemesis. This was on Kickstarter fairly recently, but unfortunately, I was on a holiday when they sent me a few prototype models. I'm going to be painting the soldier from the set, and I did back this game, so it's something you might see on the channel when it finally arrives, depending how much you guys have interest in this game. Maybe you've got it, maybe you haven't. If you haven't got it and you're interested, I'll put a link in the description below to the late backer sort of pledge thing they're going to be doing in the future. And if you did back this game, let me know in the comments below and I'll sort of keep my eye on how much interest there is in this game. So here's the model. Now this is a prototype, it's not exactly the finished product, but I thought I'd just show you how the model came. It looks like it's had some zenithal highlighting applied for me, so this is going to be the first time I'm painting a model with that effect in place. Let's sort of keep an eye on and see what difference it makes. Hopefully it makes the highlights lighter and the shadows darker. I'm going to start with Parasite Brown by Valleja, and I'm going to be painting on his sort of spacesuit, making it a sort of an orangey colour, lightish orangey brown. So this is one of the biggest parts of the paint in this model. There's only a couple of colours, so it's not actually a lot of work, this model, in terms of the number of colours to use. So you're just trying to paint in his trousers. He's got a couple of arms. This guy's got a couple of arms. They're both poking through. So he's got some sleeves you need to paint in. On one of his arms, his bare arm is showing through, though. It's a bit weird. It's like wherever they are, they must be able to survive in the atmosphere to have their bare skin exposed. Anyway, after I've painted his arms and legs, basically, Necromancer Cloak out. That's by the Army Painter. It's a really, really dark grey, almost black even. And I'm going to be using my detail brush to very, very carefully paint in these pads he's got on both legs and sort of around those straps that are running through the middle of them. I'm going to use dark flesh tone for his skin tone. That's a quite dark reddish brown. It's quite a nice dark skin tone, actually. It looks really good. I am going to shade it anyway, so I'll dull it down a little bit later, but it's basically only got that one forearm showing through and a little bit of skin on his glove as well. And then I'm going to use, after I've painted in and hid the skin inside his glove, I'm going to use Necromancer's Cloak again and just paint his two gloves in the same colour that I did those patches on his legs. I just mentioned that I've watered all these paints down quite a lot because of that zenithal highlighting I'm trying to use a lot. I'm just building up really, really thin layers and letting the white in the background highlight it up and the black darken it down in the shadows. Now, the next big colour to use on this model is silver. A lot of this model is silver. So he's got his boots, he's got his gun, he's got a big space helmet-y thing down his back as well, like a harness around him. So I'm using Machinegun metal. It's a dark silver by the Army Painter. Still using my detail brush, so this model's quite small, and I'm just going to go around and carefully paint in all of his boots, all of this spine that he's got. He's got some sort of spine running down his back, which this gun's connected to. I'm going to paint the gun arm in the same colour, but I'm going to paint the gun itself in a different colour, darker metallic by the Army Painter in a minute, as I'll show you. But just to add a little contrast, a little interesting, different change in colour to this model. Once I've done all those little fiddly bits, I'm going to bust out the Regiment brush by the Army Painter. Bigger brush, doing a bigger chunk of the model. I'm just going to apply paint a lot quicker, so that's around his helmet. Just being extra careful around the glass part because I didn't want to get it too shiny for already. Then, as I mentioned before, I'm going to use rough iron. That's this really dark irony colour. Rough iron, you know, the clue's in the name, and that's going to be painting in the base of his gun. I'm just really, really darkening that metal down, just avoiding all the bits I've already painted. But I am using my Regiment brush here, trying to make a quick job of that bit. Just going to use a splash of pale flesh inside his watch. In the artwork, it looks a little bit purpley glowy, so I'm just giving him a pinky purple screen there just to add a little bit of splash of colour, something interesting. I'm going to use Gory Red to paint in those straps that I mentioned before that are going from that gun harness holder thing that are just running across his legs. So he's got a couple of straps on each side. I'm just painting red. Simple as that, but nice, easy strokes. You just want to use your detail brush, paint along it. Don't forget to very, very carefully get the top and bottom edges, make that look nice and 3D and realistic. It's really going to add a little bit of detail and make that bit look much, much better. His straps are also sort of running between his arms and behind his gun. It's a little bit fiddly in there, but you can just about reach. After that, I'm going to attach back my hobby holder. So I've got a very, very firm, careful grip here. And I've mixed a glaze using light denim and about 10% of that, and the rest is glaze medium. And I'm just going to apply that from the bottom of his helmet and glide that upwards, which is going to sort of make his helmet look like glass, like a light blue glass. Now, I did consider painting that all sorts of colours. It depends what colour visor you want. You could, if you made a red glaze, it'd be a bit red. A yellow glaze, it'd be a bit yellow, but I've gone for blue, you know, the most realistic, I think, glass look and feel. I don't think it's the coolest look at the end, but it's very realistic, and I hope at the end you think it also looks quite like glass. I'm quite proud of that. I'm quite happy with this model in the end, so hopefully you'll enjoy this video and get to see what it looks at the end, and it's pretty good for my standard at least. So I'm just showing you now, completely finished the base coat. That's how he's going to look. Only a handful of colours as I mentioned, but this model is really, really nice. I'm really happy I actually backed this game. This is going to have some really, really good models. Just going to show some washing now. This is the jumpsuit shader. This is the red shader. I'm going to just cover the red bits and the orange bits of his jumpsuit in there. And being very, very careful with the shade, making sure it goes exactly where I want, using the exact amount I want, making sure no extra shade makes it look dirty or spreads the red anywhere I don't want it to. And then after I finish with that shade, I'm going to bust out the Survivor shader, the black shader. And you can see I've upgraded to my Regiment brush just because this is not as fiddly. I'm less fussed about how it settles, but this is for all the metallics and the dark areas of the model. So that was his gun, all of the silver, his boots, his helmet, the arm of his gun, and then those patches of the grey that are on his legs on either side. So just carefully with that. Then I'm going to be super, super slow and careful around his helmet. Really try not to get any of that shader on his helmet. Once that's all dry, I'm going to pick out gloss varnish and just add a gloss varnish to that visor that I painted before, just trying to make it look even more like glass. And then I'm going to use my detail brush, just get in the very, very corners of all of that and suck up some that spill onto the metal. I don't think it matters if the metal's a bit shiny either, but I just trying to do it perfectly, basically. Next up, I'm going to start highlighting up all of that metal. I'm going to start with Machinegun metal. That's the darker silver by Army Painter, and I'm going to be dry brushing this on. First onto the gun, just applying a very, very light coat all over the raised edges, and there's loads and loads of bumps, notches, bits stuck to the gun, lots of corners and angles and stuff. So this is going to dry brush across it really, really well and start bringing some metallic back into it and make it pop out a lot better. I'm going to do exactly the same on his boots. Again, there's lots of sorts of sections of his boots and angles and pistons and stuff on his boots, and it's going to catch this dry brush really, really well. This is really, really easy dry brushing. I'm being careful not to get any on the other coloured parts, but it's not really much of an issue. The metallic bits are poking out left, right and centre. And then I'm going to go down to my detail brush and get out Claymore blade. That's the really light, bright silver by the Army Painter. And I'm now going to do a lot of edge highlighting along all those metal bits again, up his shin, across all these, as I mentioned, the sort of plates of his boots. I guess so they're realistic, so you can actually walk in this bends and joints and stuff. I'm just going to go along and catch a line of this brighter silver down all of the edges. It's just edge highlighting, and I'll show you all of that. I just slowed some of it down there so you could sort of get the gist for what I'm doing, but I'm just going to go around and get at least the top edges of all of those plates and just make it look a lot more realistic and as though light's reflecting off all those panels. Back to what I was saying before about being happy I backed this. When these models arrived, I've had them for quite a while. As I mentioned, I was on holiday. I missed being able to do one in time for the Kickstarter. But I'm doing them now because hopefully you guys want to see them as much as I did. But I've sort of procrastinated on this. This model looks really, really hard to paint. I was a little bit dubious, thinking, oh, I'm going to ruin this. So I've just put it off. We all do it, right? We all put off painting something we think is going to be a bit too difficult. But I was completely wrong. This is one of the easiest things I've had to paint, and it's one of the things that's come out the best, I think. And I got to paint some glass for the first time ever, and I'm pretty chuffed with that. I think all the metals I've done a decent job highlighting. It looks quite small and fiddly, but all the details stand out so far from the model. It's really, really easy to catch the highlighting on the bits you mean to catch. So big thumbs up on this model. I hope the finished models, the proper models, all are as nice to paint as this is. So after I've done all that after you've trimmed all your hedges and highlighted them up nicely, we're going to go on to highlighting up that orange jumpsuit that he's wearing as his sort of spacesuit. I'm going to use a completely different colour, and I'm going to go for tan here. After that red shader had sort of absorbed into the Parasite Brown that I base coated it in, this was the correct colour to then highlight it with. So you might have to judge that for yourselves. Just have a look how yours comes out at the end and see what would be the best base coat, but the best highlighting coat to put on top of that base coat. And for me, it was tan by Valleja. And here, there's loads and loads of sorts of folds and straps and all bits going on all over his jumpsuit. So this is really easy. Again, I'm just being very, very careful. It's kind of highlighting itself. I'm just putting my brush near it, and you can't get in all the recesses and all the shaded parts. And I'd have to go quite out of my way to accidentally highlight somewhere I didn't mean to. So that's all over him, all over that jumpsuit, nice and easy. A little splash of dark flesh tone again, just to highlight up his forearm. Just going to catch the edge of that, just to make that look a little bit more realistic, a bit skin-like. Necromancer cloak out, again, just painting in around the bits where a bit of colour's bled, and now I just want to highlight that back up. I did add that survivor shader, so I was just putting a little dab on each patch on his side, and I realized it really just didn't really need it. If you want that level, you can go for it, but I could barely see it, so I just skipped on. Cold Grey's out by Valleja. It's a much lighter grey, and I'm going to sort of dry brush this very carefully on his gloves and those pads on his side, and just catch all the raised bits. Using my detail brush, so I didn't go full dry brush, but I was very carefully just scraping some on. And here I'm just highlighting back in that gory red, just going to basically paint in all the bits that I can see of this. I'm not going to do the top and the bottom that I did in the base coat, leave those a bit darker, but the main side that you can see of them, just paint fully back in red at all the bits you can reach easily, and that's just going to make that look a lot more realistic. And then for the final highlight of that, I'm just going to use Orange Fire, just an orange by Valleja. I'm going to have next to no paint on my brush, and then I'm going to scrape even more off. And then I'm just going to use the side of my insane detail brush and just scrape down the bottom edge of all of the straps that I can see. And that orange is going to make it look like a really, really nice highlight to that red, and just make the detail stand out just that little bit better. Final touch, but it's going to make that red just look all that much better. It's well worth doing it. It only takes a few minutes. And then I'm going to paint the base black. I would have liked to base it in some way, but I've got no sci-fi base. And frankly, we all like bases differently. So plain black's nice, quick, easy, simple, and you can always touch it up at the end. I'm then going to paint around the rim of the base just in a red. I think the character's art looks quite red, like it's a red class, a red character. Just make him more recognizable on the table, make the base just that little bit more interesting. And that's him completely finished. Just give him a little spin so you can all see how he came out. And I'll just let you know, this guy took me exactly an hour to paint. That's one of my fastest yet. And I thought it was going to be one of the hardest things I've ever painted. Boy, was I wrong. I'm always wrong about the difficulty of painting. What I think's easy is much harder. What I think's hard is much easier. But if you're new to the channel, that's just part of me being a novice painter and just trying to show other people that this hobby is really easy to get into, and it just takes a little bit of confidence and a bit of practice, and you start getting some great results. As I mentioned, if you are new, do hit subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, do hit like, and I hope to see you again. If you want to see more prototype models from Nemesis, let me know in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching.